It's a jungle out there, and you're going to be looking for a property manager. They're going to be managing $500,000, $1 million of your assets. I call it a bag of cash. Who's the right person to choose? Expert property manager Claire is going to help us this morning. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Namaste.
Namaste. How are you today, Mark?
Very good yourself.
I'm good. I'm excited for today. It's a bit rainy, but means inside the office will be nice and cozy. So yeah, get stuff done.
It's a slow start to a holiday of Easter that we're all approaching.
It is, and our Easter's tied in with the Australian Easter this year, which is great. We're painting our eggs tonight, so there's going to be dye everywhere in my house.
Oh, that's cool. And I've been fasting for 40 days. No meat, no dairy, no egg.
I don't know how you do it. I've only done this week, no meat, and I'm already struggling.
I had to go to an Italian restaurant last night with 7 blokes and tell everyone I wasn't eating meat. It wasn't a good look when the steak came out.
What'd you eat? Just plain pasta, nothing on it.
I had prawns, but there was like about 15 prawn heads on my plate, because it was all shared. I was like, anyway. So, Cleo, let's talk about property managers. Let's help people out there that are searching for a great property manager. Give them some tools. Tell them what to look after, what to look out for, what the things. And this is huge. You're a property manager of 20 years. You see, you've seen some of your office juniors go and become full senior property managers from one day to the next, and you're like, oh no. Tell us more.
It's true. I think in this fast paced society we live in, I guess the different generations want to move up quickly, whereas I'm Gen X. I started from the bottom and I worked my way up, as they say. There was a hierarchy when I started, things like that that are quite archaic now. However, I didn't dream to, ask for more money or ask for a better title or anything until I'd done at least 8 years under my belt. People always ask me, oh, you don't work Saturdays. I'm like, no, I work Saturdays every Saturday for 8 to 10 years before I negotiated in my contract to not have to work all the Saturdays, whereas I don't know, these kids these days, they've got a lot of demands.
They do. Hey, and I guess, I love Lisa has got a great saying, Lisa Novak, and she says, um, we're going to manage, you're going to give someone a bag of cash of $1 million. That's what a 2-bedroom unit DY is worth. You're going to give that to a real estate agent. You're going to want to make sure they look after it securely. They don't lose any money out of it. And when they hand the bag of cash back to you in 5, 10, or 15 years later, there's a hell of a lot more in there. So it's a big responsibility on as a landlord to select a company and a property manager.
It's true. And I feel property management has to be your choice. You have to want to do property management. It's not something that you pick that you can just go in and out of and, waft in, waft out. It's a full-time commitment, like a lot of roles, but property management in particular, we're wealth managers as well. Like you said, we're here to make money for the landlord. We're also protecting tenants and community. And I feel you can only successfully do that with experience and time. So it doesn't mean you have to be old and decrepit, over 45, like all of us at Novak that are in PM, senior roles. So, but we have experienced mortgage, debt, being a tenant, having a tenant. So all those factors do help us manage your property in a successful way.
So being a career property manager is different to being a property manager, in my opinion. Would you agree with that? And how would you explain that?
A career property manager, like I said, will choose property management and they are not using that as a stepping stone. Some people that get into real estate start in PM, but their drive is to be in sales. So it's not their first choice. Their first choice is sometimes sales, but with sales, it's a different kettle of fish. And age and youth comes into that as well, and experience. PM's a good way to work your way up. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but for my journey, I always knew I wanted to do property management. It wasn't a question of, do I go into another area of the business? I did my certificate full time. I did my license full time, unpaid back in the day at Brookvale TAFE, like a lot of people. And you had a taste of what you wanted to do in real estate. We studied law, we studied sales, auctioneering, property management. That was the IT side of it. And I chose PM because that's what I wanted to do. So I've stuck with that because I felt that that's, an area where I would enjoy. Um, I guess also just age as well plays into it. Sometimes having tried other work, other careers, you do get an idea of the world in which we live. Would you believe it or not? I had a background in banking. I worked for Westpac for a bit. I've also been in retail when I was younger, and then I feel that those custom based industries have also helped me with property management because we're dealing with the most essential thing, which is housing. Other than food, it's housing. So yeah, I do feel it's important that if you do decide to be in property management, that that's what you want. It's not going to be something that is going to come easy and you're going to, be a senior PM in a year or two, because like it or not, us seniors that do have juniors and people that we guide, we take all that responsibility. They're there to assist and learn. But, when you get those training wheels off early and the mistake and implications could be hundreds of thousands of dollars for the owner, that's not a good feeling for a young person. So, we do all the sheltering, all the mothering, all the training, all of that, but we also take we take the hit when it's something that needs to have a decision put in place that could cost money.
The biggest complaint from all my research and learnings that a landlord has with property management, the biggest complaint is changing of the guard, changing of staff. So if there's a beef that you're ever going to have in your as a landlord, your beef is going to be, oh my god, my agent's always my property manager's always changing. How do you look out for something like that when you're selecting an agency and an agent property manager, that you are going to get longevity with your property manager?
Well, you've only got to look at their website. If their staff, website's forever changing faces, there's a clear indication. Even your statements, when people leave and go in the business, sometimes they might leave the names there. Novak, you've got Tina, myself, Melissa, Brunker. We've been with Novak such a long time. Like, you can track all the hair trends from back in the day up until what I look like in my first photo till now. We've been there a long time, and that makes us accountable, for our clients. We've been there a long time. We're not going to say, oh, that mistake was blah, 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 and blank. Yeah, that was a good Photoshop one. I'm going to go back to long hair, actually. I liked long hair. Do it every time I chop it. I want it back. But yeah, like, we are, excuse me, responsible and accountable. Being there a long time, there is no blame shifting of, mistakes or things that happen. We own our things. And that rapport with clients, is very important. I have clients for that entire time, and they know that if they're overseas or that they're on holiday or they've got some ailment or whatever, they know I've got their biggest asset covered. They know me, they know how I work, they know they can call me anytime. Availability for me is huge because I do some days from home, but I'm always available on my phone. I'm always available to my clients, whether it's WhatsApp, clients in Singapore, clients around the country.
Yeah,
That's
you have
another
that.
thing.
And also, one thing I noticed that a good property manager does, and you do, is you actually train a landlord how to be a good landlord. So it's not just yes sir, no sir, 3 bags more sir. It's about no, this is actually the better way. This is the best way. And I liken it to a Formula One driver. You don't realize what a good driver they are until there's a fuck up,
So
and
there's a
you
crash around the corner.
till there's a
Yeah.
crash around the corner, and that's the difference between a phenomenal property manager and and just putting someone behind the wheel, because they win the race every time with your property, with your asset. It doesn't cost you money, it doesn't cost you time, and I think that's huge. But I know I do feel for people that have a bad run with a property manager. But I think in ending today and in concluding today, my advice would be, you don't interview the office, interview the property manager looking after you for the entire time. Square them up on, are you going to be looking after my property? How long have you been around for? And what experience do you have to manage my asset? Rather than sometimes you may get the principal, someone like me, schmoozing, and then you flick it to a junior property manager. I wouldn't do that, but it does happen out there. Or you get a person called a BDM, a business development manager, who just goes out there and spruiks, talks about how wonderful the agency is, but then they end up farming you off to a very junior property manager where you're disappointed. The good news is, to switch to an experienced company is free and fast, and you can keep your tenants.
Exactly. We take all the hassle out of that, and we don't. I'm not in the business of comparing either. When you take a property on from another agent, you're starting fresh. You're starting from a new platform. You want to make that experience easy for the client, for the landlord, for the tenants even. Our tenant selection process is very rigorous. It's not just leasing people, going through an application saying, oh, did you rent from them again? We vet people to make sure they're the right choice for a client's property. You get that with experience, you get that with gut feelings, you get that with having to go to tribunal and NCAT and seeing on the other side when the crashes happen, how not to, go through that same thing. That's just part of how we roll at Novak, and we do know some of the terms before they're coming. So yeah, I guess that's another bonus.
Cleo, thank you so much. I do have to say, respect to all property managers out there. If you want to liken it to another job out there, I would call it like servicing of a car. And every time you go in to see those guys, it's generally because they're going to cost you money, or there's a problem with your car, and you're never really happy. A bit like a dentist. The only time you're there, it's going to cost you money, and they're going to find something that you didn't know. So it's a really hard job for you. Respect to property managers out there in the world, and hopefully we'll help people today on how to choose a great property manager.
See you guys. Have a great week. Have happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Thanks, Cleo.